Okay, so now we're going to talk about trauma a little bit more. So we have talked about that previously in the unit, but let's dip back in and think about what that might mean in the context of child protection or child safety work. So remember we talked before about complex trauma, or this one-off, what we often call as acute trauma. Let's compare that to what we talk about here with child safety. So in child safety, we're talking about any detrimental effect on the child's well-being or harm by a single act or a series of acts. So in child protection in Queensland, we're talking about both acute and complex trauma, okay, because both of those could lead to harm of the child. If it's acute trauma, in honesty, it will be something really major, like somebody has tried to kill a child. That would lead to an intervention. If it's something like physical neglect, that might not always lead to a lot of intervention from child safety, if any. I want to talk about some of the impacts around trauma that you might see in a child protection kind of setting. So we could see developmental difficulties, I suppose. Sometimes kids can be really sensitive to touch, so you need to be mindful of that. Touch is really important for our development. For kids' development, can be very soothing, but if the only touch that you really know or have responded to or experienced a lot of is abusive touch, well then no. So keep your hands to yourself. Don't assume that you can touch children just because they're little. It might really set a young child or person off. Things like poor hygiene, I've even seen that with teenagers. So it might be, why look after these parts of myself when nobody else does? Actually, too, if you smell or have bad hygiene, you might feel that that keeps people away from you. And if you've been abused, you definitely want to keep people away from you, right? So that can be a really great way of distancing people. It's a protective mechanism that you can use as well. You might want to have a quick read of these other ones. There are, of course, a lot of emotional and cognitive impacts of trauma as well, and I suppose they're the ones that get a lot of focus when we talk about trauma and we talk about children as well, and they are important for us to consider, but know that they're not the only ones. So emotional self-regulation, so that's being able to be happy or sad, or like not being overboard. So someone who can't self-regulate might be on a bit of a roller coaster, I suppose, between those feelings all the time. Really high highs, really low lows, not being able to self-soothe. So when they're upset, kids who can't kind of calm themselves down, that's actually something you have to learn as a child. It could be difficulty describing feelings or experiences, so they just can't give you that language. So that's where those other engagement strategies are really important. Not being able to tell people what their wishes, their dreams, their hopes or desires are, because perhaps they've been taught not to talk about that sort of stuff. Sometimes just not recognising emotions in others, because your own emotions have to be cut off as a way of surviving. You might not understand other people's emotions. Feelings that get out of control really quickly. So people start becoming fearful quickly, dreading things, that they're shameful, all of these things that happen very quickly. So there's that quick escalation, again, relating back to that idea of self-regulation. Sometimes problems with being attentive. So we often see kids with trauma backgrounds with ADHD diagnoses, conduct disorder, all of these kinds of things. Executive functioning might not be, where we want it to be. Can't remember things. We've talked about that earlier in the unit as well. Processing new information or different information, that can be really hard. So really hard in a classroom for kids with a trauma kind of background. And completing tasks can be challenging as well. There can be other issues too when you have a trauma background in terms of how you engage in the social world, or with social workers sometimes too. So that can be problems with boundaries. So that might be even sexual boundaries with people, personal boundaries, what you ask, how you act. It's not a child that's been sexually abused might ask you, say, oh, do you want to touch me here? And that's, because they don't understand these kinds of boundaries because they've been violated in such a big way. Difficulty in taking other people's perspectives, understanding what it's like for other people. So empathy can be difficult if you've had this, for some people with a trauma background, because again, we haven't been able to develop those emotions, so we can't identify them or understand what they're like for other people. You might want to have people on your side, really develop those kind of allies, I suppose, here. Manipulating, controlling the environment. Being really indiscriminate with affection. I sort of touched on that before, but it might also just be, hugging lots of people. And if you've got a child that goes around and hugs lots of people, that's problematic, especially if they're in the child safety system, because if there is someone who's predatory around, they will take advantage of that child. Kids who are really demanding or clingy, like they just don't want to be left by themselves, they want to be with you all the time. Like little toddlers do that, and if you've been abused at that age and you haven't been able to develop, you've got a little 10 or 11-year-old who needs to have someone around them all the time, or wants someone with them. So that can be, understand. Just kids who can't play or have fun because they haven't had those kinds of opportunities. They've had to be, act like a real grown-up a lot of the time. If we talk about attachment, now, as you know, I'm probably not the greatest fan of attachment, but if we think of it just in terms of relationship building, people might have distrust, kids might have distrust, they might be suspicious of you, suspicious of all adults, or the opposite, people might very independent kids, don't need adults around, can do things for themselves, can look after their little siblings. They might not care too much about other people, so if they hurt you, they might not feel guilty or have a lot of, remorse, c'est la vie. Might not have a lot of friends their own age. And, that with that, there's a lack of compassion and empathy. So, kids with this trauma background, they can seem really troubled, but very strange to us as well. So what we want to do when kids have got this kind of background, and I can't sort of stress this enough, is that you want that safe environment. That's physical safety, emotional safety. And so sometimes when kids have got a trauma background and they're placed in out-of-home care, they're not always placed in physically or emotionally safe environments, unfortunately. We want them to feel comfortable, not to feel anxious, not to feel fearful, and we want to protect them from the likelihood of any future kind of traumas. So that takes a lot of work, and it can take a lot of time as well. What I would ask you to do is look beyond the behaviour. So instead of saying, why are you doing that? Think about, well, what happened to a person to make them act in this way? So we want to plan around how to support young people and children the best way that we know how to recover. And so this sounds really easy, look beyond the behaviour, but when the behaviour is really outlandish and problematic, it's really hard to do that. So you have to exercise a lot of professional discretion and the ability to critically reflect. You have to be a really smart cookie to do this, because sometimes when there's trauma, people will be, kind of trying to get that reaction from you, especially as a worker. So, it's really hard sometimes to look beyond the behaviour, but you have to do it. So let's have a look at this for an example here. Okay, so we've got a young person here, and they are hitting you, they're yelling, they're swearing, they're threatening to kill the last 3 carers or whatever. So this is pretty nasty behaviour. You might feel, you as a worker or a carer might feel unsafe, you might feel frustrated, all of these things. Then if we looked at that person developmentally, so you can see we're bringing some of these ideas from the multidimensional approach in here. If he's a tall kid, or she's a tall kid, they might be treated older than their age. They might have adult conversations. But of course the emotional age is quite young as well. Might not have, close attachment, close relationships with anyone, doesn't want to trust anyone, this child. And then we can see, if we knew some of the trauma history here, we could see that, they weren't fed, so there's physical neglect for a period of time, nightmares about a bad man who wasn't allowed to visit him when he lived with his mother. So who is that bad man? Is that dad? Was he abusive? So there's a lot of things going on there. So we could just look at the hitting, yelling, swearing, threatening kind of behaviours and think, this kid's no good, turf him out. But if we look at the trauma that has caused this child's behaviour or young person's behaviour, well, maybe we need to take a different approach here. Maybe we need to be a bit more patient in how we're going to respond to that child. I'll leave that with you there. We could talk for so long about the Child Safety Service System. Please feel free to pop some questions up if you've got any of them. We'll talk about that in our other sessions. Okay, thanks.